more businesses than we are creating. And what are the businesses that are getting destroyed? It's not the big. It ain't Hewlett-Packard. It isn't Goldman Sachs. It's not Google. It's the family-owned businesses, the small businesses. It's the 9-person real estate firm that I started out in. It's the family-owned auto body shop. It's the small and family-owned businesses that create the new jobs in this country. They employ half the people. And so when we crush them, and we are crushing them, we crush possibilities for all kinds of Americans and all kinds of communities.
Back with us for the hour, 2016 GOP presidential candidate Carly Fiorina. You know, I look at the amount of suffering that is going around in this country. If you become president, here's the economy you will inherit. $20 trillion in debt, $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. You will inherit 93 million Americans out of the workforce, 50 million Americans in poverty, 46 million Americans on food stamps that have been there for 40 months or longer. How do you begin to solve such an enormous problem like that economically?
And this president, of course, declares victory. Amazing. So here's the good news about this. The only way to get our debts and deficits under control is to grow the economy, cut spending. Grow the economy, cut spending. Grow the economy, cut spending.
The good news
is only two ways.
Okay.
But they're two sides of the same coin. If we cut spending in the right way, we will help grow the economy. So I believe we need to do three things. One, we have to disentangle people's lives from these webs of dependence. If you look at the programs that we have put in place ever since the war on poverty, those programs provide all of the wrong incentives. If you're a single mom with a couple kids on food stamps, none of those programs incent you to move forward in your life. In fact, if you try to move forward in your life, if you try to work more, if you try to earn more, you start losing benefits. In other words, the risks feel too high to you. So we have to disentangle those webs of dependence. We have to make sure that every single child gets a good quality education, which means we actually have to provide parents with choices. The left wing is totally on the wrong side of this education issue, and no, Common Core and increasing spending in the Department of Education isn't going to solve that problem. What's going to solve that problem is choices for parents and accountability for teachers.
Let me go to your 2 points, because I agree with you. There are only two ways you can do it. When you talk about cutting spending, most politicians, Washington works in funny ways.
Because it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, exactly. Baseline budgeting, built-in increases in every government program.
That's right.
And then if you reduce the increase from 8% to 5%, they call it a cut. That's not a cut.
No, it's not.
That's an increase.
That's right.
Are you talking about real cuts and real reductions in the size and spending in government?
Yes. Three things we have to do to actually reduce spending. Number one, when tens of thousands of baby boomers retire out of the federal government, we cannot replace a single one. And that's what's going to happen over the next 5 or 6 years. Number two, we need revenue reducing.
Yes. Okay.
We need revenue reducing tax reform. Not revenue neutral tax reform. All these tax reform plans.
So the government will take in less money.
Yes, less money.
Okay.
And number three, we need to go to real zero-based budgeting, meaning every program has to be justified in every agency every year, down to the last cent, because you're absolutely right. You know what appropriations hearings are about? The rate of increase over last year. And that's how, drifting along, we have increased the size and scope and cost and complexity and ineptitude, frankly, of every single government agency for 45 years.
It's amazing that Republicans have gone along with the scheme, in my view. The penny plan, which I support, I support it, one, because it works, and two, because you can explain it in a sentence. You cut 1 penny out of every dollar the government spends every year for 6 years, you balance the budget.
You know what, Sean? There are so many good ideas, that being one of them. But here's what every single one of those good ideas takes. Leadership that is unafraid to challenge the status quo. And what happens is you get a lot of politicians who are being benefited by the status quo. And so guess what? They don't challenge the status quo. It is why now we need a leader in the Oval Office who will challenge the status quo of Washington, D.C.
Right. So if you cut the spending into the government, also you're talking about tax reform, reducing the amount of spending, and real dollars.
That's right.
Okay. Now we still have all those people out of the labor force.
That's right.
We still have those people in poverty, and we still have those people on food stamps. And we still have debt to pay down. How do you then get those people back to work?
The most important thing that we need to do to grow this economy is to get the real engine of economic growth in this nation going and growing again. And guess what that is? Small and family-owned and new businesses. Small, family-owned, new businesses have always created 2/3 of the jobs in this country. They employ half the people. I started out as a secretary in a 9-person real estate firm. My husband Frank started out as a tow truck driver.
I was a
family-owned,
dishwasher.
you were a dishwasher. The
Yeah.
point is, it's how most Americans get their start. And what we're doing now is we're destroying more of those businesses than we're creating. This big, bloated, complicated government that has been created over decades by a political class, guess what? Only the big, the powerful, the wealthy, and the well-connected can deal with that big government. It's called crony capitalism. And the only way to reduce crony capitalism is to simplify and reduce the impact and the
When
spending
you
and the
talk
scope
about
of government.
simplifying the tax code, do you prefer a flat tax, a fair tax? Do you have a preference?
I prefer a tax code that's 3 pages long, not 70,000 pages long.
I
prefer
like
a
that.
tax code that anybody can understand and can fill out without having to hire an accountant or a lawyer to do so.
I can't tell you how refreshing that would be. All right, we'll take a break. We'll have more